Prince George turns 11.
And could Harry and Meghan swing the US election? Hello and welcome to Heirs and Spares, the show where we bring you insight and opinion into the lives of two rather famous royal couples on either side of the Atlantic. I'm Kinsey Schofield and I'll be bringing you updates on the Duke and Duchess of Sussex right here in California.
And I'm Katie Nicholl and I'll have all the latest news from the Prince and Princess of Wales here in the UK. And once again, it's one of their little ones who's dominating the headlines today because Prince George turns, can you believe it, 11. Kinsey, I'm beginning to feel quite old now, but I remember so clearly being outside the Lindo wing, waiting for the birth of this little prince, or we didn't know it was going to be a prince at the time. It could have been a princess. We didn't know because, of course, the sex had been kept a secret. And it just doesn't feel like it's possible that it's just over a decade and that he's not just double figures, he's 11. I think the picture that was released today is beautiful. A bit of a departure from the norm where often the pictures are in colour. They're pretty informal. I know George looks very relaxed, but he is in a suit and a shirt. I sort of feel that makes him look even more grown up. And it is just a reminder of how quickly the years are flying. What did you make of the photograph?
I thought it was absolutely precious. I did want to ask you, do you feel like it's a reflection of his personality being in the suit? Because for some royal watchers, for most royal watchers, when it comes to the Wales family, we see them in at these formal occasions, in these formal settings where perhaps Prince George is at a sports match with his father, but he is dressed like an executive, or we see them at these beautiful historic events like a coronation and they're dressed in full costume. So do you believe this is a reflection of his personality? Is he a little more serious? Is he thinking about the future? Because I felt like that's what was reflected in that image.
Well, I think it's showing a little bit more of a serious side to Prince George, and you're right. Even at a football match, he's in a suit. He's sort of dressing like daddy. So I think that's part of the charm of these two. They are mirror images of each other, and that's something that's certainly been picked up in the comment section. Just how similar they look. George is a mini me when it comes to daddy. I personally think that George is most relaxed when he's actually kicked off his shoes, tearing around the gardens of Anne Hall or at Windsor, in a t-shirt and shorts. And I think actually that's the case for all of the family. They are most comfortable when they're casual. So I think it's a really interesting choice. We don't know exactly when the photograph was taken. We know it was taken earlier this month. We think it was at Windsor. Possibly it was before he was going to some sort of an engagement or somewhere where he needed to be dressed up. Because I think I think when it comes to the kids and when they're most relaxed and they're most natural, as I say, it's when they are casual. So I do think that seeing him in a suit, albeit with an unbuttoned shirt and he's not wearing a tie, it's not terribly formal. He's looking quite dapper, and we're seeing his hair styled in a bit of a side sweep, which is a bit Michael Middleton, I think, and looking very handsome indeed, and exuding a confidence that I think we haven't seen in Prince George. This picture to me feels quite different. It feels quite grown up. He really owns that picture. There's nothing embarrassed or sheepish about it. Oh, I'm a bit coy about having my picture taken here. He really is. He's quite a commanding presence in that respect, and so that's why I say I feel he feels grown up. He feels like he's really turned a corner here. So I think it's quite an important image. I think it's one where we'll look back on, and when you compare it to all the photographs of the years where perhaps he's lost a tooth, perhaps he's sporting a new haircut, we're seeing a sort of different side to him in this, and certainly a more grown-up side to Prince George. I think the black and white is lovely and sort of adds to that edge of sophistication about the photograph. And I think most importantly, it's wonderful that the Princess of Wales is comfortable enough to continue these family portraits. We've become very accustomed to this, and I'm thinking back to the very first photograph that we saw of Prince George. If you remember, Kinsey, it was in the gardens of the Middletons' family home. It was taken by Michael Middleton I'm sure there is a dog in there as well. And it was Kate, William, and baby George being cradled in her arms. And they just looked so relaxed. It was just such a lovely family shot. And that really broke all sort of protocol in terms of the first sort of royal image of them as a family, because it wasn't taken by a royal photographer. It wasn't a professional shot. It was a very amateur picture taken by Michael Middleton. It was the sort of photograph that you might see in a regular family album, not a sort of royal portrait. And I think that sort of set the benchmark for things to come. And we've been very lucky to be treated to these wonderful family pictures on these milestone moments. And I think we were all a little bit worried after the furore over the Mother's Day photograph, which Kate did admit had been digitally manipulated, that perhaps, you know, we wouldn't see her taking these sorts of pictures because she came in for such a barrage of, I think, frankly, unnecessary criticism over that photograph. I think we were all a bit worried that perhaps we might not see these lovely, candid, relaxed family photos again. So I sort of breathe a relief every time we get them, because I think it's very wonderful that we get them. And I think that Kate gets these images of her children from behind the lens that no other photographer would get, because they're just so relaxed with her.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that it proves our point, which we were making at the time, that this was an innocent mistake. There was nothing, I mean, now we have way more details than we could have ever imagined or grasped at that time when it came to what was really going on behind the scenes. And we all felt horrible that there was so much pressure on her over that photo. All of these photo agencies saying that they were no longer just going to approve Kensington Palace images. They were going to go over them with a fine-tooth comb. And, you know, it proves our point that it was just a sweet, innocent mistake. Just somebody trying to look her best for the world, wanting to put her best foot forward with her favorite people in the world, her babies. And you're right, it's intimate, it's authentic, it's sincere, these images, because you know that it's baby Louis and it's Prince George and it's Princess Charlotte looking up lovingly at their mother, who, when you watch them in real life, you see they absolutely adore and worship her. Yeah, we do too. We love her. She's adorable. I agree with you. It's important that we continue to get these pictures from the Princess of Wales, because you just don't get that type of access when it is a professional photographer, Hollywood, somebody with the big lights coming in and the big flash bulbs. These are sweet moments where she is probably just saying, hurry up, let's get the shot. And that makes it even more fun to imagine.
Well, I think we have to hope that over the summer there might be another photograph of the Wales family, because I don't think we're going to see the Princess of Wales in person for a little while. We know that she's still going through this course of preventative chemotherapy. We know that the family are now on their summer vacation, most of which I understand is going to be spent at Anmore Hall, which is their boat hole in Norfolk, in that beautiful countryside where they've got the most incredible beaches on their doorstep. They've got access to sailing, which is something they love and they enjoy every summer. I'm hearing rumours that there might be a holiday to Mustique, possibly, if Catherine is up to it and if she's been given the green light to travel. And I think, you know, she probably needs some sunshine. We're not having the best summer over here. I think if she can get away, that will be wonderful. But we don't know when we're going to see her next, what sort of public engagements are going to be coming up in her schedule anytime soon. I think that's all down to her medical team, of course, to when she finishes this course of preventative chemotherapy and how she's feeling. So she's going to be taking the summer off, as is the Prince of Wales. And of course, the three children, they won't be back at school until September. So I think we probably won't expect to see them. I'm told they will be going up to Scotland, to Balmoral, to spend some time with the King, as is tradition. They often go up and spend a long weekend up there. But I don't think we'll expect to see them in the spotlight or doing anything anytime soon. So you do wonder if perhaps we might get some sort of an image of the family at some point over the summer, just to reassure all of us that they're all doing well. We'll have to wait and see on that front.
What do you think Balmoral will be like this summer? Because it's going to be rare downtime. Because, I mean, I know we've said over the last few months, Catherine's taking a break, the King is still ill and working. But the reality is we have seen so much of this family. It's been a blessing, but we have seen so much of this family over the last few months. Even when they scaled back for the election, we still got plenty of them because of sporting events and It was just wild to see so much of them. So will Balmoral really be an escape? On top of them being very busy lately, they've dealt with a lot of heartache over the last year. I mean, this has been a tough time physically for both the King and Princess of Wales. Do you think this is going to be a real holiday to remember? Is it going to be a love fest?
Well, I think Balmoral is a really important part of the royal calendar. I mean, the late Queen used to go up as soon as she'd finished Scottish Week and carried out the last of her engagements, and then she'd go up to Balmoral and she'd stay up there actually until October. Now, Charles has changed things. He gets back in September. He's sort of, as soon as the schools are back, he's really back at work. I think it's going to be an important family holiday. As you say, Kinsey, it's been an incredibly turbulent and difficult few months for them. Two shocking cancer diagnoses within weeks of each other. It's an awful lot for the family to get their heads around. And as you also point out, despite all of this, we've seen them being very, very visible. We've seen them at all the high profile events that we want to see them at, from Trooping to Ascot to Wimbledon, which we didn't expect. So I think that's been very pleasantly surprising. It's been reassuring, but I think there is a sense that they also need this time out of the spotlight, and Balmoral provides a wonderful retreat for them. The late Queen started this tradition of having all of her grandchildren and her great-grandchildren up there for a long weekend, which she absolutely loved. And I think the King has continued this tradition. So we're expecting that the Waleses will go up there for a long weekend. It usually takes place at the end of August. I think we'll see Zara and Mike, the Tyndall family, going up there. The Edinburghs will be going up there. I think it'll be staggered. I think, the King is still pacing himself. He's still under, obviously, medical attention and advice. He'll be wanting to pace himself and really use this as an opportunity to unwind and relax and catch up with family. And that's, that is what will be happening over the summer. I think it's very unlikely that we'll see the Sussexes going to Balmoral. I don't think that's on the cards. I'm not even sure if there's been an invitation extended to the Sussexes to go to Suffolk, but they seem to be pretty busy over in America, Kinsey.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I have to tell you about this new piece in Newsweek. And they're talking about how an election endorsement from Meghan Markle and Prince Harry could actually influence more than 40% of Americans. I mean, it's kind of that sentence right there makes it sound like, I think your first instinct is that 40% of Americans would agree or disagree with Prince Harry or Meghan Markle, but it actually breaks down almost evenly. 21% said they would be more likely to vote for a candidate endorsed by the Sussexes compared to 20% who said that they would be less likely. The others really had no opinion about it. But these are two people that we know politics are on their mind. We know that they are heavily invested in this news cycle. In 2020, Meghan spoke on the importance of women casting their ballots for a virtual When All Women Vote couch party. I don't know if you remember this, but there were multiple big-wig Democrats involved in this. I believe it was Hillary Clinton, Stacey Abrams, Kamala Harris, just a lot of familiar faces when it came to the Democratic Party at the time. She spoke on the importance of women using their voice, the high stakes of the election, which I'd say she probably thinks this election is just as high stakes, and honoring those who came before us and who will come after us when we head to the voting booths. We know that Meghan has been vocal of her criticism of Donald Trump, though at one point she actually befriended his daughter Ivanka, that she talked about her on the TIG very lovingly. She's spoken out against Trump before meeting Prince Harry, and then Prince Harry spoke negatively about him when he accidentally took that phone call by Russian pranksters posing as Greta Thunberg. So we know neither one of them are necessarily fans of Donald Trump. And when they campaigned in America in 2020, not for a specific candidate, but to vote, they did say change is what we need, change is what we deserve, which people felt like alluded to the pair saying, let's move away from President Donald Trump at the time. This is a very sticky situation. Katie, I wonder if it would be important to Meghan to have a voice in this particular election. I know she spoke at 75 days out in 2020. So we still have plenty of time before we head to the polls in November. But, do they want to rock the boat? Do they want to alienate half of the country by inserting themselves in this very polarizing conversation?
I mean, it's a big question, and I don't know the answer to it. But I think they have proven to be just as divisive across the pond as they are over here. They're very controversial. It was like they seem to be like Marmite, and they really do divide people. So I think that anyone that's advising them will probably be advising them to not get involved. I mean, there's nothing wrong with going and saying, use your vote. And I think, it's very likely that we will hear Meghan saying that, particularly to encourage women to go and vote. As you say, she is very political. I mean, she harboured political ambitions of her own at one point in her lifetime. But I think they've had their fingers burned in the past. I think they're very aware of how controversial they are. I mean, I think that whole Pat Tillman award really probably shook them up when there was criticism over them getting that award, sort of essentially a humanitarian award. And even that was the root of some controversy for them. So by wading into the political arena, particularly, I know they're not working royals, but Harry is still a member of the royal family. And as a member of the royal family, he's meant to be apolitical. Now, he's got as close to that political arena as he can, just about, without being hauled over the coals. But I think they need to exercise caution. And I suspect they probably will. I think they can be cautious whilst encouraging people to get out there and vote. But I think that's a really interesting finding from Newsweek, and just shows that, shows their influence. As much as they divide people, you can't take away from the fact that they're still incredibly influential.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And it's almost as if she intentionally, because that's a true passion, has always kind of had a leg in this world. And so, of course, that people are going to be influenced by her if they have heard her openly communicate about something like this over the last few years. It's not a shock factor like, oh, you can't do that. I mean, she was openly discussing politics, sitting down with Larry King prior to meeting Prince Harry. So there is a fan base out there that not only is not taken aback by her communicating this way, but they expect it because that's who they knew prior to her marrying into the royal family. There is another story that's been on my radar over the last week, and it is the idea that Prince Harry owns the right to spare his book. As you know, he owns the right to not only the book, but perhaps the movie potential. Could somebody turn this into a movie? There was a lot of talk about this at the time that the book blew up. Who's going to get the movie rights? Is this going to be a made-for-TV movie? Is it going to be HBO? Does it automatically go to Netflix? The potential was endless. Now we're hearing reports, this has been reported on both GB News and the Daily Mail, that Prince Harry owns the rights, but he is holding on to them with a vengeance out of fear that whoever could purchase them might write Diana, Princess Diana, or Meghan Markle in a negative light. Have you heard something similar? I guess I have a bigger question for you in regards to this, but have you heard something similar? What is your initial reaction?
I've heard the rumours, and I have to say that I think that's probably one of the best, most sensible decisions Prince Harry has made, to hold on and retain those movie rights, because had he sold them, and he'd probably have got a huge amount of money for doing so, he's lost total control. If anyone was able to make a film version of that, I mean, it doesn't really even bear thinking about, to be honest, Kinsey. And I think it goes far beyond just how Meghan might be portrayed, how Diana might be portrayed. I mean, imagine the huge potential for even more damage to be done between his relationship between him and his stepmother, Camilla, between him and his father, between him and his brother. I mean, you only need to sort of look at something like The Crown to see how much something that close to the bone can upset the royal family. For something to be turned into a movie based on Prince Harry's own words has the potential for, I think, a huge amount of controversy, possibly a great deal of litigation. So actually, while I think he's made mistakes in Spare, revealing intimate details of private conversations, which has led to this big breakdown of trust between him and his family. Actually, whoever advised him to retain those movie rights, which, as I say, could have earned him an absolute fortune, whatever advice whoever gave it, it was very good advice and very sensible of him to take it.
Absolutely. A raise for that Archwell employee. I wondered, though, when I was reading the story, it occurred to me both Prince Harry and Prince William are so fiercely protective of their wives, but also Princess Diana. I really admired Prince William, watching him stand there and just tear into the BBC over the Martin Bashir investigation. You just could feel how devastated he was, that there was now tangible proof that his mom had been manipulated, his mother had been manipulated into this interview that at the time crushed him. You know, it crushed him to have to sit there and have classmates discussing this and to have the world discussing this very revealing interview that she had done with Martin Bashir. And then we see Prince William protecting the Princess of Wales throughout this cancer battle. We see Prince Harry, you've been quoted all over the place when we did our interview about how physically you can tell Prince Harry protects Meghan Markle sometimes when they're photographed together. That PDA is not just love, but it's also security. Where did these boys learn this? Do you think that this is something they taught each other? Because in the book Spare, if you read Diana, Her True Story, you hear a message that Diana was all alone and that she didn't have anybody to protect her. So do you think that this is a characteristic that these two brothers developed together out of seeing that lack of protection for their mother?
Yes, I mean, I think, William was obviously far more aware of it than Harry was because of the age difference between them. But, they grew up, seeing their mother hounded by the paparazzi, losing their mother in terribly tragic circumstances, and I suppose as they got older, understanding that more and knowing that when it came to their own wives, they wanted to be able to protect them in a way that they obviously felt their mother hadn't been protected. And, we've seen that with William. He's written various pretty strong letters to editors over the years, particularly thinking about his courtship with, as she then was, Kate Middleton, making it very clear that he wasn't going to tolerate any sort of intrusion when she was photographed topless and those pictures appeared on the cover of Closer magazine in France. He took serious legal action, won a massive payout and, donated all the money to charity. I mean, that sort of protective instinct kicked in right from the start, and if anyone crosses the line now, William will be just as ferocious in litigation, and understandably so. We've seen it with Harry over the years with his girlfriends, but I think particularly with Meghan Markle, as she then was before she got married, particularly at that start of the relationship when there was just fevered interest, it just was out of all sense of proportion. And I think this is these men wanting to protect their, at the time, girlfriends and then now wives. And I think it's that same protective instinct that kicks in with their children. And I think you're right. I think it's down to what they saw their mother experience, but also down to what they experienced as children. When everything from their, losing their first tooth to taking their first steps to whatever it might have been was chronicled in the media in this sort of omnipresent lens on their lives. We talk about that goldfish bowl of royalty. That's why William left Kensington Palace, to get away from that. It's why Harry left the country, to escape that. It's a gilded cage, really. It's not an easy lifestyle to be within. And I think that protective instinct comes from both growing up in that goldfish bowl of royalty and seeing what happened to their mother.
Well, I do think that we can all agree that shelving the Spare movie is something we can all admire. But if you disagree with us, let us know in the comments below. Please make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video with a friend. We're so grateful that you spent your morning, afternoon, or evening with us. Thank you. We're happy to have you.
We're happy to have you. We're happy to have the comments. And Kinsey, I look forward to speaking with you next week.